Things I pondered before leaving Christianity. First things first, why didn't Jesus have his own book in the Bible? I don't understand why some of the books were written by the people that were around him, and he didn't think to account for himself. As the Son of God, he should have known at some point, just like his father should have known, that people were going to try and misconstrue the word. So why did they not have like some sort of backup plan?
Well, actually, if we understand what the biblical text is teaching, we understand that the biblical text teaches that Jesus is God. Over in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, we read, God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This I am statement is reference to Christ being Yahweh. How, you ask? Because over in the gospel, in particular the gospel of John, we see Jesus Christ refer to himself as I am. In Greek, that is ego eimi, I am that I am. And this is directly connected to Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, which indicates that Christ is Yahweh. So if we confirm both parts of the scriptures, and we can also confirm that Christ is God, thus the whole Bible is Jesus Christ's word. So there's no need for a backup plan. Also, with the manuscript evidence we have for the Old Testament and the New Testament, as a Christian, I can have confidence that what we have as canon is what the original apostles had and preserved to carry along on to the future generations of Christians.
To the whole don't question God. Why? Because 2 Timothy 2:15 says, study to show thyself approved. If I'm going to connect with him, I need to learn him, which means I'm going to have to study and ask questions. So why can't I question him?
There seems to be a clear misunderstanding that many people make the mistake of. So it's not a big deal about asking God's questions fundamentally. It's about in which manner you ask God questions. Sometimes we can ask questions in an unhumble way, in a way that's prideful. Those are the sinful ways to ask questions. But if you're asking a question in a humble way, in a way that's really meaningful, in a way that you're really inquiring of the Lord of what he desires of you, then yeah, it's okay to ask questions. We have an example of this in the prophet Habakkuk, in where he asked questions of God, and those questions were honest and humble in nature. So therefore, the idea of fundamental understanding of asking God questions is not sinful. It's just the way upon which you ask questions. We also have examples of people asking God questions in Psalms 10, verse 1. It reads, why, O Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in time of trouble? So clearly, we understand that asking questions is not a problem. It's upon the manner upon which you ask the question that is the problem.
Probably the one that fucked me up the most. Who is the original sinner? Most will say Eve, some will say Adam, and then some will say Satan, but it had to be God. Because if God is all-knowing, then he knew what was going to happen when he created Earth, and he still did. He did it anyways, which means free will doesn't exist, because him knowing negates free will. But if we do have free will, that negates him being all-knowing. So something is not adding up here. It's giving me very much lies.
No one is lying to you. You're deceiving yourself. You're actually suppressing the truth and the righteousness. It all depends what position you take. Because if you're like me, I take a position which we call compatibilism. I believe that free will and determinism are compatible together. And so because I take that position, I believe that God determines even the evil that comes to this world. Why will God determine evil? The reason that he determines evil is because he has a purposeful plan for it. So if you can imagine the most egregious thing you can think of, God determined this thing to come about. It's not that God did it. It's not that God made the perpetrator do it. It's not that God put a gun to the person's head and said do it. It is God determining that these things are going to come about, because this is all a part of his overarching plan for humanity. And because of that, he seeks to glorify himself, and because he wants to be glorified, he's going to be judged. And a lot of these things that we see in this world is because of his judgment, especially considering natural disasters. Why do natural disasters happen? I personally believe it's because God is judging the world in certain aspects. So this idea that God is a sinner is preposterous. We know that Adam is the first person to sin. He is the one that brought sin in the world. So the only reason that God permits sin to happen is only for him to be glorified and his purposeful means to be seen throughout all the world.